Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Hockey Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today as we are one day away from the Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night. Can't be any more excited for it. I've been in anticipation all week. Of course, you guys know this. All three of my shows have basically just been previewing the Stanley Cup Finals as we have so much to go over before we get into it. And then, of course, when the games start getting played, so much in-depth analysis. This is a fantastic time to be a hockey fan and be a part of the hockey world. So I'm very excited to get right into this show today where we have a great one. The first segment today will be me breaking down the lines for each team who has the advantage when you're just looking at the teams on paper. Of course, hockey games aren't played on paper, but all we have to go off right now is the on paper that both of these teams show. So I'm excited to talk about that. My second segment will be me talking about the top 10 players in the Stanley Cup Final as I rank them 1 to 10, who is most important for each team and who are the best players overall for the Stanley Cup Final. The third segment will be how each team was assembled to get to this point in the Stanley Cup Finals. I love looking at how teams were assembled and what moves general managers were able to make to get to this product that they see on the ice, get it to the point that it's at. Our fourth and penultimate segment of the week and of the night will be the top storylines in the Stanley Cup Finals, and then our fifth and final segment will finish off by talking about my predictions for the Stanley Cup Finals. I've been keeping you guys a little bit in anticipation as I haven't given them out yet, but today will be when I do it in that fifth and final segment before I send you guys off to watch it tomorrow, and I surely am so excited for that. But before we get into all that, as always, if you would like to become a bigger part of the show, make your voice heard, ask me any questions, then use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. It goes a long way to support all the creators here at the GSMC Podcast Network. So if you guys will, it's the gsmcpodcast.net that you see on the screen right now. And without further ado, as always, we'll get right into our first segment of the night, me talking about the lines breakdown for the Stanley Cup Final. And both these teams are fantastic teams. You don't get to this point without being a fantastic team, of course. But we're going to start with who the team that on paper I believe is the better team is the Florida Panthers. Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barkov make up their first line. Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barkov, and Sam Reinhart make up their first line. Their second line then is Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Evan Rodriguez, Eetu Luostarinen, Anton Lundell, Vladimir Tarasenko is their third line. Then Steven Lorentz, Kevin Senlin, and Kyle Okposo finish off their forward group in that fourth line. Talking a little bit about that first line, how well it works together. First off, you have three pretty great defensive-minded forwards. Alexander Barkov winning the Selke, Sam Reinhart's a big body on that right wing, and Carter Verhaeghe plays amazing in the defensive zone, a very fast player as well. So those three really are a fantastic first line. Both ends of the ice, they play such a great 200-foot game. And when you see in this series, the Florida Panthers, they're going to, of course, shorten their bench a little bit, play three lines, probably skipping this Steven Lorentz and Kevin Stenlund. What we'll see is probably first line go, second line go, and then third line, then first line, second line, then maybe fourth line, first line, second line, third line, something like that. Or they'll just run first line, second line, third line, first line, second line, first line, second line, third line, something like that, kind of double shifting these top two lines because that is the strength of this team. Of course, when you have Vladimir Tarasenko on the third line, Anton Lundell has been a fantastic player for them all season long as well, and especially in these playoffs. But when you have the fantastic top two lines that can play this fantastic style of game, of course, Matthew Tkachuk on that second line left wing, Sam Bennett in the middle there, another big body, a great 200-foot player. Evan Rodriguez is another big body. So when you have these guys that can play that 200-foot game on the top two lines, that's who you're going to kind of rely on a little bit when you kind of are in the Stanley Cup Final. And I expect out of the Florida Panthers them to rely on those guys. So I expect a lot of play from Carter Verhaeghe, Alexander Barkov, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Evan Rodriguez. A lot of these goals are going to come from them, and a lot of these defensive efforts are going to come from them. Of course, their bottom two lines are amazing as well. The depth pieces have kind of what has gotten them to this point, but I do believe that when it comes down to it in the Stanley Cup Finals, they're going to rely on the guys that have done it all season long. And, of course, Sam Reinhart has been, amazing this entire season. So when you're talking about the forwards with the Florida Panthers, and it's kind of going to be the exact same talking about the Edmonton Oilers, a little bit more when we're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, but I can definitely see them shortening the bench a bit, going top two lines a lot, and double shifting these guys. Of course, you're going to need to match Connor McDavid, who's going to be out on the ice. I expect him to be around 25 minutes of ice time a game in this series and in this Stanley Cup Final, because they need him to be the best Connor McDavid we have ever seen. That's going to be a special task for him, and I can't wait to see if he steps up to it. Tomorrow night is going to tell us a lot about how the series is going to play out. The box score is going to be a huge indication to the remainder of this series, this game one in Florida, so I can't wait to see how it plays out. But when we're talking about the defensive pairing for the Florida, this is a big strength in this team. Their tops, all of their 6 defensive players are fantastic. Gustav Forsling and Aaron Ekblad make up your top 2. Gustav Forsling is one of the best defenders in the NHL offensively. I think he had around 70 points in this past season. He played amazing. I think he had a plus 50 or something with his plus minus as well. Always out there when good things happen, and he doesn't give up a lot of goals. Fantastic top 2 defensive pairing here, and Aaron Ekblad and Gustav Forsling. Aaron Ekblad, of course, being injured for most of the season, or not most of the season, but for a large portion of the season. Getting that guy back and healthy has been huge for this Florida Panthers team for this playoff run. Of course, he is their assistant captain as well. So Aaron Ekblad has been such a big key for the Florida Panthers. And then in their middle 2 defensive pairing, you have Nico Mikkola and Brandon Montour. Both of these guys played amazing when the Edmonton Oilers came to town back in November, I believe it was. Or it was the December game that Nico Mikkola had 2 assists, and Brandon Montour, I believe, had 2 points as well in that game. So for these 2 guys, they're going to need to step up. We talk about the defensive producing on the offensive side, and I do believe that could be a huge key in this series as well. Then you have Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Dmitry Kulikov on the bottom 2 defensive pairing. Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been a veteran in the league, mainstay in the NHL for a very long time, has done his job amazingly. When he was on Arizona, he was a 70-point getter for a lot of his career. Of course, it's going down as he's now around 34 years old, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around that for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I can actually check here. He's 32 years old, but a fantastic player. Really great on the power play, really good defensively as well. He's one of the best players in the NHL, and all of his stats have always backed that up. This season needing to take a step down a little bit here, now playing on the bottom 2, but he's still producing in his role, and he's still enjoying playing on the bottom pairing with Dmitry Kulikov, who has been a fantastic supplementary defensive partner for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. What he lacks, Dmitry Kulikov makes up for in many ways. So that entire defensive core is really what's gotten the Florida Panthers to where they're at. All 6 of those guys are such a huge key for the Panthers when they're talking both ends of the ice, really. And it is one of the best defensive-minded defensive cores in the NHL as well. And then on the power play, you have on the top line power play, you have Sam Reinhart, Barkov, Carter Verhaeghe, Brandon Montour, and Matthew Tkachuk. This power play line has been amazing. You have your first line out there, and then adding Matthew Tkachuk as he's been playing, I believe he's playing as a shooter, if I'm not mistaken. What I think I've been seeing is Verhaeghe and Tkachuk as shooters, Barkov on net, Sam Reinhart down low with Montour as the quarterback with this power play, but I could be wrong. I do need to look at the film for the Panthers power play a little bit more before tomorrow, but it's been amazing, this power play. It's 6th in the NHL for the postseason, and it was top 10 in the NHL in the regular season. So it's been a great unit. And then their second, you have Bennett, Anton Lundell, Vladimir Tarasenko. This is where Anton Lundell really produces offensively. They go with the one defenseman approach for both power play lines, with OEL as your one defenseman back. Brandon Montour is the one back on the first line power play unit. So you're not seeing Gustav Forsling or Aaron Ekblad on the power play. Them not being out on the ice for that says a lot about what they're trying to do with their top line, with the defense. It is really all about getting shutting it down when you have those guys out on the ice, because they're out on the ice 24-25 minutes a game, and that could be even more. We could be seeing Ekblad and Forsling out there for 30 minutes a night for some of these nights. So when it comes to the penalty kill, it is one of the best penalty kills in hockey. I think it is number 2. It is number 2 in the postseason. It was top 5 of the regular season. Barkov, Reinhart, Mikola, Dmitry Kulikov, and then it's Kevin Stenlund, Eetu Luostarinen, Gustav Forsling, and Aaron Ekblad on the second penalty kill unit. And then, as we all know, Bobrovsky and Anthony Stolarz are your goaltenders. So that is the Florida Panthers. And then when you get over to the Edmonton Oilers, we're talking Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman. That line's been amazing all season long. Of course, they love to split up McDavid and Draisaitl when it's 5-on-5. Have those two fantastic forwards playing on 2 different lines has been very good for them. Dylan Holloway is going to get your second line left wing spot with Evander Kane on Leon Draisaitl's other side. That partnership's been working very well in the regular season. Then you have Warren Foegele, Ryan McLeod, Corey Perry in the third line, Matthias Janmark, Adam Henrique, and Connor Brown on that fourth line. What we're going to be talking about with the Edmonton Oilers is the top 2 lines are going to be on the ice a lot of the time. The bottom 2 lines, the bottom 6 for the Edmonton Oilers, I could see them at less than 10 minutes of ice time a night for both of them. I would be shocked if they get more than that, really. They want McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice as much as possible. And I can't wait to see if they're up for that task, because they're going to need to be if they want to be the Panthers. We're going to the defensive pairing. You have Mattias Ekholm, Evan Bouchard, Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, Philip Broberg, and Brett Kulak for the Edmonton Oilers defense. It's not great. They're splitting up for this series. It looks like what they've been doing in practice is splitting up Evan Bouchard and Darnell Nurse. Darnell Nurse making $9.25 million and not making your top 2 defensive pair for Stanley Cup Final is awful. I love to harp on Darnell Nurse because he makes so much money and he's such an underwhelming player every time I watch him. But there's a reason for that. You're on the fourth, or you're on the second line defensive pairing, and you're making $9.25 million. It's a lot different than Leon Draisaitl making 8.25, or he makes 8 something, and he's on the second line. But that's because Connor McDavid is ahead of you, and you definitely could play on that left wing, but you want to split them up. This is different. Darnell Nurse is just not playing good hockey right now. He's amazing defensively, but offensively, he hasn't deserved his spot. And now Mattias Ekholm is going to be playing with Evan Bouchard as that. They're looking to generate offense with that top 2 pairing. Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci. That's going to be a shutdown defensive pair. Cody Ceci, so great defensively as well. And then Broberg and Kulak probably not going to see too much ice time. They're probably going to be around 10 minutes of ice time each night as well. Their power play, this is where they get a lot going. It's Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, McDavid, Bouchard. We talked about their power play in depth on Wednesday. A little breakdown about how they roll with it. Check that segment out from that Wednesday podcast if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about that power play. But it's fantastic for a reason. And then their second power play unit: Corey Perry, Adam Henrique, Evander Kane, Darnell Nurse, Mattias Ekholm. That we don't see it that often because they love to run out that first line power play unit for a lot of the power play time. So we're not going to be really seeing this, but it's really Evander Kane really is what we look out for when this line is out on the ice. The Panthers are going to need to shut him down. He's a fantastic forward. Of course, Evander Kane has always been very good ever since he was on San Jose as well. So their penalty kill, the best in the postseason, 93% penalty kill. They've shut down the last 27 straight power play opportunities from the opposition. So they're looking very good. It's Derek Ryan, Nugent-Hopkins, Ekholm, Cody Ceci. Nugent-Hopkins has really thrived in this postseason, playing on that first line with McDavid and playing on a first line penalty kill and also playing on that first power play unit. I mean, he is a big part of this Edmonton Oilers team, and you can see it with how much that coach trusts him. And then it's McLeod, Henrique, Darnell Nurse, Brett Kulak on the second line penalty kill unit, and then we're going to see Stuart Skinner probably for all games of this Stanley Cup Finals run. So that's what the Edmonton Oilers are looking like when they're matching up against each other. I think that the Edmonton Oilers have the edge when you're looking at the first line. The Edmonton Oilers could have the edge depending on how well Leon Draisaitl is playing on the second line, but the Panthers overall, I think, is a better second line. And then third and fourth line goes to the Panthers, of course, as it is one of their strong suits, is that depth. And then when you're talking about the defense, I think it is going to be very interesting to see how these two defensive cores match up against each other. It's very similar, but in different ways. The second defensive pairing for the Edmonton Oilers is that shutdown. The first defensive pairing for the Panthers is the shutdown. The second for the Panthers is kind of the offensive-minded defenseman, and then the first for the Oilers are the offensive-minded defensemen. So it's a little bit of a switch. They are really good at different roles. Evan Bouchard, of course, being one of the best players of this postseason, has the third most points overall of the postseason, has been such a big piece for the Edmonton Oilers. So I can't wait to see how the defensive cores match up against each other and who gets the edge there. But that'll wrap it up for our first segment of the night, talking about the line breakdowns for the Edmonton Oilers and Florida Panthers. When I get back, we'll be talking about the top 10 players in the Stanley Cup Final.